And we are live. I was getting involved in the conversation online, and I got distracted.
Yes.
I forgot to put on the screen. Good afternoon, Tony.
Hello, Rev Nick. How are you, sir?
Fantabuloso, my darling. Yourself?
Yeah, getting there. We are having the same issue as we were last week. The comments outside of Nick's feeds aren't coming up, so we have a few people saying hi on my feeds, which I will, as we go down the list, I will kick in. But no, hi, hello, Kaza, sorry, just to say we weren't late.
We were on time. You were early.
We were on time. Yes.
Absolutely. Oh wow, it's so much fun watching the conversations as they go along, though.
Well, we were back in the green room, weren't we, having a bit of a natter, and we saw Kaza come up, and then Dorney, and it was like, we're starting already, and we're not even live yet.
I know, it was brilliant, and
it was so much fun.
You know what? I'm going to be sort of is the answer. I have sort of made my bed.
Well, good job you can't see my bed behind this screen because there's a husband sprawled on it. So, yeah. But we have, I've only got 3. So if I do them first and then we can go down our hellos on your comments. We have Nicola Goodson saying, afternoon, everyone.
Yes,
Dorney Taylor saying hi, afternoon. Lorraine Clark from Signs of the Afterlife, which if anybody hasn't joined Signs of the Afterlife, it's a wonderful little group. Plug. And somebody called Michael who said there is indeed. Yeah, there is indeed. So yeah, they're the hellos off mine.
Absolutely, and I have opened it in the background as well, so I can have a nosy.
Oh right, okay, so you can see.
So I can jump across as well, and of course, she was first in the house, so we do need to mention Kaza, hotly followed by Dorney, and then of course the lovely Shelley came in, and then Christine Davis and Justine Molyneux. And that lovely lady, Linda Brown, hi young.
I think I've got a date with her next week.
I have to admit, I think you've got a date with a lot of people next week, mate. I'll tell you. Especially from the conversations going on as well. We've got Tony and Eunice coming in. We have also got Liz watching with us. We've got Eddie with us as well. Eddie, my red man. Eddie, my red man. Bless his. Oh no! Just back from visiting his mum in hospital. She's moaning her hip. Oh, so we do send out healing, of course.
Yes.
His mum.
Bless you.
Bless her heart. So yes. We are gathering force. The numbers are increasing minute by minute again, as always, as people join us. So welcome to each and every one of you. Now, the wonderful thing about the communication and the community in this conversation is that, of course, it started before we even got online and the conversation continues. But, of course, there's also time for questions. because we are here to answer yours. Um,
I'm not answering that one that's just popped up on the comment screen.
Can we have the nails?
I've got a. Sorry, I'm not being rude. I have a bruise on my nail, so
yeah.
I'm having a rest. But yes, there will be a set next week.
Yeah, absolutely. In actual fact, you know, it's funny. I was talking to someone last night, who I haven't seen in literally yonks. And occasionally dips in and out of the stuff that we do online. And I said, of course, next week the medium is Reverend Tony Swindells. He's coming to Littleport. And she said, I don't know whether I've seen that one, have I? And I said, oh, I'm sure you have done. She said, well, I've seen so many people, I can never remember, you know, who it is that I've seen. And I said, Tony's very well known for being the medium with nice nails. Oh, yes, I know who you mean. So, you know, I'm known as the one that can't shut up, and you're the one with the nice nails. I know which I prefer. So yeah, absolutely. So keep the. Speaking of the, Lisa. Hello, my little snowflake. This is the individual I was just talking about, and the conversation that I was telling you about earlier, Tony. So there we are. She heard.
There's two big, really deep, meaty topics that have popped up already.
Yes.
One from Liz, and then Kaz's. Oh wow.
Yeah. And I'm actually going to jump back before it goes even higher. I'm going to bookmark both of them. Because absolutely awesome questions from both of you, and we will work round to them. And Shelley's got barring sheep next to the farmers, so send them love and light. Cherry Ann, the lovely Cherry Ann, is joining us all the way from Français.
Parlez-vous français?
Or Français. She does parlez-vous a little bit, but she's actually originally from the South Coast. And that was a terrible attempt at your accent, Cherry. I do apologise. I love. She's got the same accent as my first ever art teacher, Mr. Dial.
Oh.
And he's the only person on the world, and you now get that permission too, Cherry. The only person in the world who was ever allowed to call me Nicholas, because the way accent comes out with Nicholas, it makes it sound so much better. So you now have permission to call me Nicholas too, darling, because obviously that's your guide's name, as we know. So I hear you say it all the time, but you never use it on me. But you have permission to now, my darling. Yes, we had a new family member drive smoke.
Cute.
I know. It's absolutely. And Kaza, you've tied it in for us, darling.
Yes, we need to talk. Shooting kangaroos is never, ever good. Whether they attack you or not. No. You can't shoot Skippy. You can't.
No. But for those that don't know, it is a computer game. She's not literally actually doing that, but she posted a video earlier. And we said we're going to have to work it in somehow, and then you put your kangaroo post up. So it was like, yeah, that's an easy one to tie in. And Eddie, you're absolutely right. Epic biblical topics.
Michael.
Oh, hang on. Let me jump across. No, I'm not sharing that one. No. Anybody
on my feed, feel free to pile in on my husband, because no.
And Adi in the house. Hello, Adi. Welcome all the way from a very wet Inglemells. Good to see you. But yeah, I've spent my morning / early afternoon with Cherry, doing a one-to-one with Cherry, which was very uplifting and very deep and meaningful. And I'm sure based on the questions that are coming in, the conversation is going to remain very deep and meaningful.
Yeah, so let's have the lightheartedness now, and then we can move into the deep and meaningful.
And I really do. I'm sure this is a continuation from Liz, although you haven't been to Facebook. No, StreamYard.com/Facebook.
Yes, let's not switch it around like we both did earlier.
Yeah, because we've both done that to see if it would affect the comments coming in on our stream. It hasn't, so I don't know what's going on. But yes, the follow-on is two people wanted to convince me that God is a judgmental meanie and won't allow me to heaven if I don't renounce my spiritual ways. That is the view of one way of life.
Yes.
That is the viewpoint of one way of life. And interestingly, bringing in the fact that Cherry and I were doing spiritual stuff earlier, we did have that conversation about people's perspective. There you go, Cherry. That's how it all ties in. I knew they would. This whole idea of perspective and what are in people's minds. That I believe the word that was used by Cherry's guide is that viewpoint of the perspective of what image is being channeled into the mind by those particular views. And certain religious practices do have a habit of doing that. I'm glad to see that in all of the comments we've got God is only of love. God is all love. Because we as spiritualists see, now I know where it's coming from. See that see that we see that crossover of different ways of life. We're not unique in that way in any way, shape or form. There are many other ways of life that do cross over those very limiting boundaries of what constitutes a religious practice or a way of life. But it doesn't mean to say that everyone is that one particular group gets the right to chastise for that particular pathway.
No, I did see an interesting YouTube video about actually the topic that I think it was Kaza highlighted earlier about marking your body and putting art on your body in terms of tattoos and things. And he said, well, the way to look at that is, yes, it does say that in the Old Testament. In the Old Testament, it lays down a lot of rules, like you say, about not eating pork and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. He said, but ask those people whether they are wearing all natural man-made, all natural fibers today, because it does say very clearly. He said, but the way to look at it is when Christ was asked which of the commandments and the laws of God are the most important, he answered quite clearly that love the Lord thy God above all others and do unto others as you would have done unto you. And these are the commandments that are above all others.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, this is really, 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 really important, and I totally agree. But there's a comment here. He said he was channeling God, and he was told God wanted me off my path. Right, so what he's doing is what he's chastising you for. He's channeling God. He's talking to the world of spirit. I totally agree with Dawny. They should not have differences. All gods are the same purpose, in my opinion. We are all one, and we should be no need to divide. Absolutely agree. The problem you've got is that when people allow their personal, what was that word, Cherry? If you're still watching, if I haven't offended you with my attempt at a South Country accent, what was that word? Let me just. I did make a note of it. There was a word that you used and Spirit used that sums it up.
They were reborn. Oh, born again Christians. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
The,
Inspired. I can't find that word that you and your guides used. If you can remember it, Cherry, please just share it, because it's really, really important. It's that viewpoint, that perspective. It's those images that are interpreted in your mind. We all to an extent do that, but the point is we should accept that we all have a different viewpoint. We all have a different understanding of what a certain image means, and God is like that. We all have an individual personal relationship with the Great Spirit, with the divine, whatever you want to call it. And so to have ownership is where they've been directing me, I tell you. To have ownership over God. Who the hell do we think we are? To own God, Frank. Oh, hello. They are really on a militant rant today. I do apologise. But it's that ownership. We don't own Spirit. We don't own God. And we don't have what's that word? A patent on faith. It's interpreted by the individual, and sometimes that interpretation can lead us in different directions, but that doesn't mean to say that those directions are the only directions. And it's when we take that ownership, that's when we're walking down a dodgy path. But that's not God and that's not Spirit. That's people.
That absolutely, it's them. And just quickly, in case Nick hasn't seen, Mr. Carlton is in the house.
Hello, Mr. Carlton. Hello, darling. Good
He's
to
been
see
doing
you.
the final school run.
Oh,
dear.
hello, mate.
Oh dear. Now the fun starts. Entertaining the children for 6 weeks.
Wow.
A deep and meaningful afternoon is what you've missed. It's going to be so.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, the questions that have come in already. Have a look in your notes, Nick.
See, this is where things are going really, really hinky with Facebook. That I can't remember. Have a look at your notes. That's
from Cherry Ann.
That's from Cherry Ann, but she was showing up a minute ago, so there is something really hinky going on. That's just strange. Hello to Debbie Romero. Hello, darling. Good to see you all the way from California. But yes, so I mean, we haven't really gotten into the questions per se.
No.
I've already gone on a rant on behalf of Spirit, so I do apologise.
It's fine.
But the thing is this, we all have to accept that religion and faith is personal. And when we try and take ownership of others' views, ways of working, Eddie, why I don't even say my guide. They could be working with tons of other people. Yeah, interestingly enough, the chap that I work with, I meet mediums that he has an influence over, works with, deals with on so many different levels. I don't own my guides. He's a friend of mine. He's my mate. But once again, in the same way, he's friend to many, and his life he would have been friend to many. So I absolutely I like that. Thank you.
Absolutely, yeah. Apparently, using the word chakra proves that you're speaking to the devil.
See, this is a hatred of Eastern and Middle Eastern practices. That's not showing that you're working with the devil. That's showing that you have a hatred of other religions, because chakras have been in existence as a way of life, as a part of a way of life. Sorry, for a lot longer than Christianity has existed. So we have to be very careful. I think that with defending ourselves, that we don't go too far onto the path of becoming that which we despise in others. You know, when we start attacking other people because we think we're right, we become the enemy that we're fighting against. But everyone has a right to an opinion, and we should air those opinions. And I've always allowed the poem Desiderata to guide my thoughts. You know, go placidly amidst the noise and haste, and know what peace there may be in silence. Be it forever on good terms with all people. Share your truth. You know, and there are even in the 7 and 10 and 20 and therefore 27 principles, the ability to accept that other people might not think the same way as us, and how we interact and deal with that is by their fruits you will know them. And you know, it's very easy to be hurt and offended by comments that come from people who are hard line, but I think it's important to also remember that not everyone's hard line, and that the majority of any group will be as equally accepting to difference. I would hope. It's all in God's teachings. Shine a light of the world. And everybody is right, but that's the thing, Eddie. Everybody is right, but my right is a much better right. You know, this is where we have to be so careful. Well, I understand. Yes, thank you. All right. My guy, the guy that I work with, just turned around and said, "Shut up, Nick." Tony, say something.
I'm going to say a couple of things. Daniel recommends a series called Manifest. I've not seen that one, Daniel, but I will give it a go. Anne Edgar Claydon has just put that her mummy passed in her arms. Before she went, she opened her eyes and asked what door to go through, as they were all green. I asked her, is there one that's opened? And she said, one. My daddy's there. I said, that's the one to go through. Her mum and grandma and herself were all mediums, and they were brought up in spiritualist churches. And Michael said, could he speak to Chakra Khan? I just wanted to pick up on Carol Phillips' tolerance should be taught in schools. As an LGBTQ plus person, there's a little issue in the back of my mind with the word tolerance and tolerate, because it's putting up with.
Yeah.
I will tolerate you and your views means I will put up with you because I have to. That there is a word I prefer, but it's just slipped my mind for a moment. Acceptance is much more where we want to go with it. But if people have to tolerate us as LGBTQ or as spiritualists, Christian spiritualists, whatever, I would much rather they tolerated us in silence.
Yeah.
Just my own personal thing.
Yeah.
Think what you want to think, but what do you? I always say, Carol, our relationship with God, and I know Nick feels very much the same way as me on this one, our relationship with God is a very, very personal one. And I had somebody of a different faith ask me, as a minister, do I believe that God doesn't like him because he identified as bisexual? And I said, do you feel God doesn't accept you because you identify as bisexual? He said, no, I feel like I've got the same relationship with God as I had before I came out. And I said, then what's it got to do with anybody else? Your relationship with God is personal. And if you feel God is still standing with you and holding you and loving you like he did before, absolutely fine. No problem at all.
Yeah.
I get what. I get it. It's just the nuances of the word
And doesn't this go back to how we started, actually, about the meanings of words and the images that they invoke is dependent on your experiences? On many levels, tolerance is such a wonderful word until you've been on the receiving end of negative tolerance. And it makes you caution about that whole concept. And the same can be said for religion. Everyone here is religious in their own way. And because they've developed a path of open religiousness,
Eddie's just stolen my phrase.
Yeah. I see that. I see. We'll get to that.
Sorry, I just had to laugh.
No. But it's good. I think it's good in situations like today that we need to laugh. Indeed. Tolerance on its own concept is a good thing, but once again it goes back to our own individual experiences of those concepts that can change our way of visualizing those concepts in our mind, because sometimes it can be really, really difficult. I mean, for example, in reference to the LGBTQIA plus community, the Q one is now very much modern accepted. I can't stand it. I can't stand it because it was always used as a negative towards me. Now, if people want to take ownership of it and feel happy with it, that's great, but it will always be difficult for me.
It's changed. It's changed. It's now questioning. Questioning. It is one that I will use, but again, from the Rainbow Project's perspective, we have it's brilliant, Nick. It's a slur board, and we always say to people, if through the week you get something hurled at you, come in, scribble it on the slur board, and we'll take ownership of them all. And some of them are we've had to turn it round now so it faces the wall when not in use, because some of them are a little bit on the saucy side. However, Michael's just put, I am definitely queer, but it's fine. Everybody feels differently about it. It's gay that I have an issue with because that was hurled at me all the time when I was at school. So that's the one that sticks with me, and every time I hear it, it's that little scar that keeps getting rubbed on, and so I just call the alphabet people.
Now, Carol, I'm sure Carol will have heard me say this from time to time in circle, and I'm sure all of you are here today as well. I call it le Bitiquois. Le Bitiquois. I love that. I think it was a little kid driving past a sign and said, le Bitiquois. I love that, and I've latched onto it, but it might offend some people, So it's once again, our experiences shape our view of certain words, concepts, and meanings. And there was no doubt in our minds, Carol, that the intention, and I agree that kind of concept should be more prevalent. I grew up in a time when, certainly from that side of my life, it was against the law to teach about tolerance or anything from that matter. But there we are. The conversation going on. I'm sorry that I haven't been able to keep up with it all because it's been an amazing beginning to today. I just want to jump back in reference to the God part. Lisa says, one of the first things I learned from Nick was we are all connected with God, the Father, Mother, Great Spirit as in an individual way. We have to accept that every person has a different connection with Spirit, but as long as we always work in love, truth, and light, we connect together in love. Well said, sweetie pie. Well said. Absolutely. That's more letters. Love it. Love it.
Yeah. Joe Ian Waters says, "Why does everybody want labels these days?" Absolutely. I don't get it. When the rest of the world is trying to narrow down how many pigeonholes and things we're trying to force people into,
Yeah,
And your
absolutely.
second comment that's just popped up, be who you are and be happy. Yeah,
Here.
absolutely, absolutely. There are quite a few comments coming through on Tony Swindle's Medium's feed. I'll
Yes,
pick up on Michael just says, God is neither male or female, therefore the whole phobias thing are man-made guff. Yep. Um,
totally agree.
and then Daniel asked, is there anything in your faith that you don't agree with?
Wow.
And Michael's comment was, there are people in it I don't agree with.
Same thing, really, based on what we've been saying about human perspective getting in the way.
Yeah.
Um, you know, and it ties in very much with this comment, even though we were talking whilst it was being, would have been typed and thought of before we just said that. Carol says some words that were used as derogatory in older times meant totally different things. And I find it strange how they get adapted for bad. Who decided a word meant something different? Absolutely. And it always goes back to people in power. And it really does tie in beautifully from my perspective with Daniel's question of, are there things in your way of life you disagree with? I would say no, but the interpretation of them. And because, for example, I struggle with the fact that it's kind of like, and it answers Carol's question, but also is part in answering to Daniel's question. Because what happens is groups of people come together, they discuss and they debate, and the meanings of things, of concepts, of words all blend and merge and overlap. People introduce new ideas, and on its own, there's nothing wrong with that. But what can tend to happen is that unfortunately those meanings can change, and I will go back there. But for me, it's that intermingling that then becomes the use and control and dominance and again ownership of those words. For example, when we talk about and in actual fact it's in a list for one of the podcasts, the difference between spiritualism and spiritist.
It is, yeah.
There is no major difference, the grand scheme of things. Except that spiritists traditionally believed in reincarnation and spiritualists didn't. But now, with the blending of ways of life and the more openness, that line has now blurred. And so, it's the ownership that then kind of takes over. And I don't particularly worry so much as I used to about rules and words and the meaning thereof. What I do take umbrage is the enforcement of them. I love spiritualism because it's open, or it should be open to every possibility and every interaction with the divine. But so when something comes along that says you can't do that, that's where I take umbrage, and that's the part of the way of life that I disagree with. It's that creating borders and boundaries and that sense of ownership that I take umbrage and have problem with. So it is an answer, but it isn't an answer because
Yeah.
it's being specific, if you get what I mean.
Yeah. My big thing is not words per se, it's the intent behind those words. If
Yes.
the intent is done with love and respect and openness, fine. If it's done with the intent to hurt, like the word gay was used to hurt me, I can't hear that word now without that little thing going up in the back of my brain saying, run, protect yourself, because you're going to either get a fist or a kick or something following that word. However, within our group, we always say that everybody will slip up in terms of pronouns and names and gender and people talking about their lived experience. And people talking about their lived experience may trigger some people, but it's not done with malice. It's not done with the intent to hurt. It's done with, I'm telling you about my experience, but as a fallout of that, it's caused something in you. But yeah, if you like someone I don't like, then why does it matter? It comes down to sexuality. I think it's daft as well. So you don't like certain hair, but yeah, bang
Yeah.
on. I love that.
It reminds me very much of an experiment that was, I think it was on
Blue eye, brown eye.
Blue eye, brown eye. Yeah,
brown eye experiment. Yeah.
The blue eye, brown eye experiment. I think we might have mentioned that in Circle, Carol. If we haven't, remind me on Monday. It is an amazing thing, and it was done on.
Have you seen the video?
Yeah.
Have you seen the video of it?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's stunning. Very, very vicious. And there's this psychologist, this lady, this teacher who talks about the blue eye, brown. Right, remind me. We will go into that. It sums up exactly what you've just said, because they then change the paradigm of what the difference is and create new differences based on different things, and it just shows the behaviors are formed by people and group mentality. And that's where I struggle. You know, you pick up on a concept that makes it, and it ties very much in with Daniel's comment on your page about the Virgin Mary and Christianity. You know, who decided that she was the Virgin Mary? You know, it could very well have been part of history that she would have been in trouble if she wasn't describing it as that, because I don't believe they were married at the time. So it could have.
They weren't, and she was 15, 14, 15. Anyway.
So things enter the common understanding, and perspectives are changed, and I think that's what it all ties in very much with the same scenario. My frustrations with my way of life are bound on the limiting attitudes where phrases and terms are used. But I don't have a problem with certain practices that I used to. And that's where the difficulty comes. If we can, it's an old statement, it's an old one. Just be bloody nice, you know, be kind and listen to each other rather than, you know, there's the listening and then the hearing of each other, because we can all grow and learn from each other's unique experiences and viewpoints. I don't go into a circle thinking I know it all. I go into it thinking, yes, I might be leading that circle, but what am I going to learn today? Because I do every single time. And it really must be a case of, let's just go easy on ourselves a little bit. You know, just,
exactly.
Doesn't matter. But we do have to, at the same time, appreciate that certain things will mean certain things. So that's where, coming from a perspective of making sure we explain things in its basest form for everyone, you know, and that's something that Joshua Carpenter, you know, did. You know, he took scripture and told it in stories that were easily understandable for each other. And I think that's really, really quite important, that so long as we break down that message so we each understand what it is we actually mean, rather than, and that once again brings me back to my bit that I really do struggle with, trying to use fancy terms and clever words to describe something, when all it is a concept that might mean something to someone else. And if we can just be a bit more basic in our explanations, I think life would be a lot easier. But I'm going to shut up for a minute again, because I'm on a real rant today. I don't know what's wrong with me.
I thought it was about, I thought it would be me that would be on a rant today, given the mood I've been in all week. But yeah, I absolutely agree. And there's an interesting conversations starting in on my feed about pronouns and everything else. But I do like the bits here about behaviours and things on the comments I can see on screen, because it's there's an interesting concept in psychology called the nature-nurture debate about how much of what we do is nature, so innate in us, and how much of it is nurture, so it's brought in from experience as we grow and watching other people. And there's a beautiful illustration of this on Facebook. There's a meme that goes around about it's like 3 generations of people sitting behind each other, and the voice from one person's going into the head of the younger generation in front of them, which is then coming out onto the next generation, and then there's the generation below that are holding shield back, reflecting the words back, and are saying to their child, "You are wonderful. You are brilliant. You are unique. You are special." And it's like, wow. So there is this thing about it's about how much of it is innate in us and how much of it is learned. And you are absolutely right, Dawny. A lot of behaviors are learned, and a lot of attitudes are learned as well. Nobody is born with hate. I will always say nobody is born with hate. Not even the worst people in history are born with hate. They may have been born with issues which the environment they're living exacerbate and I mean, I watched a fascinating thing when I was doing my degree on Jeffrey Dahmer, and we read a lot of transcripts of interviews and things that he'd done. And yes, that boy was born with issues, but his dad worked away nearly all week and only came back on a Friday evening, and mum was busy and off doing other things. So the kid was left with his own devices a lot of time, and these quirks of his personality, let's call them for the nicest thing, were allowed to escalate and escalate and escalate, and he was a result of his environment, given the things that he had been born with. So he did have a lot of issues growing up, Kazza, but who knows, given a different set of circumstances, how we would have developed and grown. So I suppose it's the, bless you, my child, it's the minister coming out and me saying, if something's kicking off with somebody, there are times to take a step back and look at the bigger picture and say, what is going on in your life right now? But then there are times to say, we've been round and round and round and round in this circle several times now, and nothing's getting any better. So let's just call it a day and take time away. But sorry, Carol's looks really interesting, but it's a really long paragraph, and I'm trying to read it. And I got distracted. Sorry.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, absolutely. Being of a certain generation is no excuse. I know a lot of things we look back on now with 2023 eyes and think, that was naughty. We were just talking about something the other day, actually, a series called Love Thy Neighbour, which when you watch it now is horrific, absolutely horrific. But it was a product of, and actually, if you look at what the script writers were doing, they were parodying the attitudes of people of the time, to sort of hold up a mirror and say, look how ludicrous this is. But now it's seen as a bit, and you know, wouldn't be allowed now, so to speak. But yeah, I'm loving the comments and the
I know,
and
and the
even on
conversation
my
in
feed,
yeah,
on both feeds is getting like wow.
yeah, it really, really
Sparkle
is.
Spark on my feed has just said, at some point, at some age, we all must take responsibility for our actions and reactions. Absolutely. Mike and I were just talking about this the other day, that it's something somebody asked me a while ago about heaven and hell and things and being judged. And I said, from what I hear from when I do hear things from people upstairs, if you want to say upstairs or in spirit, is if you go to spirit and you have wholeheartedly accounted for all of your wrongdoings and taken ownership of it and said, that was horrendous, I really wish I hadn't done that, and I feel dreadful for all the hurt and upset I've caused due to my attitudes, actions, then not an issue. Off you go. Have a wonderful afterlife.
Yeah,
If you haven't, there's a lot of learning to go on before you can move on and do other things. So yeah, if you atone and understand what you have done is wrong and hurt people and acknowledged how deeply people have been hurt by what you've done and said in your life, then yeah, it's absolutely, you are good to go. But if you haven't, different. Michael, I can't read that comment out on screen, matey. But yes, Love Thy Neighbour was an absolute Mickey
Mickey
take
take.
of racists who were too stupid to realise it was being.
Yeah, and do you know what? This is the thing actually for me. Comedy was always about parodying the ridiculousness of people's behaviours and just saying, like you said, here's a mirror, look at yourself. You know,
Mm,
for example, Faulty Towers got in an awful lot of trouble for some of the stuff that it did back in the
mm,
day. I mean, one of the anagrams they got away with for years, being rather flowery. Nobody actually read into that. This is where I've got to be careful because I don't want to be on the blooper reel this week. You know, and some of the stuff that they came out with. But I mean, if you take, for example, a particular episode that heavily involved the Major and some individuals of European descent, people look at it and say it's horrendous, but actually look at what the story was telling you. It was taking the mick. Basil Fawlty was the idiot. Basil Fawlty was the stupid person. Basil Fawlty was the wrong one. And to an
mm.
extent, so was the Major. But they were all products of their time. But their behaviours weren't inflaming the situation. They were saying, look at how stupid you are. You
Yeah,
know, because
absolutely.
if you've only got to look at who gets the last word in that episode and what the last word was to realise that it was a parody. Because the question was, how the hell did they win?
Mm. Yeah,
You know, and
yeah.
that's
It
all
was.
I will
It was.
say on it. So comedy was always a great opportunity to parody humanity and show just how ridiculous we are. You know, in Littleport, we have a very big building firm called Laws. The Laws are a very big family. What a lot of people don't know is that the brother of one of those individuals was the creator of Spitting Image. You know, Littleport has contributed a
Look
great
and
deal.
law. Yeah, yeah.
So back in the day, I used to love Spitting Image because it didn't allow anybody to be taken too seriously. And I'm certain that in those times, those individuals found it absolutely hilarious because if you're being taken the mickey out of, you've made it. But now we just take life so seriously.
Mm, mm.
Um, and yet there
Yeah,
is
yeah.
that
I was just
people
reading
do.
that one.
Yeah. This is the problem. It can also allow people to copy the ignorance that is reflected. But for the most part, I truly believe that the population saw the stupidity and realized what it was about. And it's unfortunate that we are all so very different, even though we are the same.
That's made me really emotional, Daniel.
Yeah.
Oh, bless you.
Let
I
me,
wish we could put
in
that
that
on
case,
screen.
we can. Give me a second. It will come copy. It will come under my name, so I apologise. But I want everyone to see. This is a comment that has come in on Tony's, and it deserves sharing. It split it into two. Daniel Carlton, I've done things I'm not proud of in my 37 years of life. Now I'm a father and believe that I'm at the time in my life to take back the actions I have caused bad in and become a figure of peace and emotional support to all. These weekly lives help in the transition of life. Daniel, we do speak of you quite often. We really, really do, because we have seeing your comments coming in week after week. We see that change. And you know what? That first bit that you said, I believe that I'm at the time in life to take back the actions I've caused bad.
Don't take them back.
Don't take them back. Own them. And that is your attitude is central for me to spiritualism. Because taking ownership of our actions and doing something about it is absolutely what we in this way of life should be all about. And you know, I know when you first came to watching these lives, you wondered how welcome you'd be. Well, let me show you this. Bravo, Daniel, for admitting it and changing. Many wouldn't. Big love and hugs. You know, you are getting comments on this side of the feed that you wouldn't necessarily see in Tony's, expressing an absolute appreciation for who you are as an individual. And that is what this is all about. And the opportunity to come together and chuck ideas out and discuss things in an open way and not take ourselves too seriously, even on serious conversations.
And your honesty, Daniel, has been a real ray of light. And I just want to take Steve Welling's point, if I can, Nick.
Going back.
Yeah. I sort of agree and sort of don't. The last part is what I take a little bit of issue with, because I have found some really genuine love-centered groups within spiritualists. I haven't been going as long as you. I've been 11 years in this game up to now, but I have found a few churches where they do things from a place of love and care, and I'm serving one on Thursday.
In Canada.
That's why.
Yeah.
I'm serving one on Thursday. I can't think where it is. I'm gonna have to check
my
diary.
know. I've heard that you're going a long old way somewhere on Thursday. That's
yeah. But we do know that halfway down there is a lovely little burger joint, greasy spoon place, which is wonderful. But yeah, it's wow. I'm just looking at the comments for Daniel, because I'd scrolled up, so I'm just scrolling back down. And I really hope, Daniel, you can make it on Thursday, because I think it would be a revelation. Oh, and just before, you mentioned about a church in Lincoln. There's one called Bracebridge Heath, and it's in a park in just out of the middle of Lincoln. It's wonderful. It's a lovely little group run by a lady called Sam Duffield, and it's brilliant. Yeah, I'm looking forward to meeting people. It's somewhere I've not been for a year exactly, because it's the same week. because we booked it when I was there last time. But yeah.
And just for the benefit, because I know Daniel's on your page, I want him to see the rest. Daniel, Shelley's comment, I love you, Shelley, by the way. Daniel, you are always a good person inside. I'm just pleased that you've brought the goodness to the surface. This shows us, Nick and Tony, that we trust and love you both. Thank you so much for Spirit. We try our best, you know. Lisa, Daniel, you're an inspiration. Thank you so much for being honest and speaking from the heart. Massive love to Daniel. This is evidence that behaviours can be changed. Well done for speaking up.
Not in Canada. Referring back to the...
Well said, Kaz. A safe space for us to be open. That's what we want for people here. We want this to be a safe space so you can open up to yourselves.
Absolutely.
And be free to comment in honesty and love and trust. And trust has to be earned. It's not something that you expect, and it shouldn't be something you expect.
Which is what shocked me about the way these sessions have gone, Nick, because we were talking earlier about we were doing it monthly, and we thought we're going to run out of steam in a few months, and nobody's ever going to be listening to us. Then we took a bit of a break. And then we came back on a monthly basis and said, how about do people think there's a need for fortnightly ones? I'm not sure myself, but if you want it. And then you lot just took ownership of it, and away we went. Daniel has said, thank you, everyone. That means a lot. Thank you for your comments and hearts. And then said, I am there Thursday, 100%. And then I think in reference to Bracebridge Heath, I know what that is. I'll go and have a look. They are really lovely people. And and thank you, Carol. That's, but it's the trust. People have come to trust us with their stories and their personal pain and anxieties and people going through grief. I mean, I always say people come to a spiritualist meeting even...
Excuse me.
Are you all right?
Yeah, I just tried to drown myself. I do apologise.
Yeah. People come to a spiritualist meeting, even if it's something like this, for a reason. There's a pain there. There's a grief there. So it's just been amazing that you've opened up to us and come to trust us with your stories, and it's brilliant. Linda, I will bookmark this week, next year, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
ready for so Daniel's got his t-shirt ready.
Fabulous. Yes, we did see the picture. Yes.
And Shelley, it would be wonderful to meet you next week. It really would. But I don't know where I am, so if you can just hold off, I'll find out where I am. And anybody really dishy, I will message which rooms we're in at the Ely Travel Lodge.
Yes. And we are kind of planning on taking over the Arbuckles. We are planning on taking. I think the way everyone's talking, we'll probably need a couple of extra tables put in it. But we are gonna have a photo shoot in Ely with all of the t-shirts, and everyone who wants to tag along. We'll post a time for that, and then I do apologise for throwing my Pepsi all over the place.
Eddie says, we're on here, Tony, just saying.
Yeah. Actually, we're going to have to work out how two Revs is
I'll be back.
Work. You'll be back in time.
I'll be back. Yeah, I'll be back in time. It's about 3 hours, I think, on a good run.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll be back. I might be a bit sort of like But I'll be here.
I love what Carol said. I really do, and I'll explain myself on that because, there are certain concepts within in religion that I struggle with, and to be fair, confessional is one of them for the way it's conducted. And she says it's sort of a confessional for everyone, and even the people viewing trust each other. This may be the only place some people go to speak their truth, and it helps. Absolutely agree, and that's what confessional should be about. It's not about saying I'm sorry and then buggering off to say a few Hail Marys and chant a little bit. It's about working through what you're feeling and how you're feeling. That's what it should be about. And I think the theme of having a box where you sit in and can't see each other doesn't help that process because it makes it dark and secretive. And confessional should be about opening up, and that's what, again, the meaning of words. Confessional is just literally an opportunity to discuss how your thoughts and feelings. And yes, amen to that. A therapy would sound absolutely.
It is. It is, and I can attest to. It's something I talked to Nick about earlier, and I am going to share a little bit of what we talked about earlier. That I have started talking therapy, and I have started working with our local. It's a telephone call, but that's fine. They've said if I feel like I want to, I can go and talk to them in person, and it does help if you do it honestly and really open up. And we're not saying we want your deepest, darkest secrets, but what we're saying is we have to be able to. Eddie's therapist quit after one session. Oh dear, that's not instilling confidence. But no, you have to be honest and you have to be open to new ideas. And I think that's where our way of life is. Yeah, just certain other things have cropped into my head then, but no. Our way of life, we are open to new ideas, new ways. Some of us, most of us, are open to new ideas and new ways and things.
Yes.
Not all of us, as the person earlier whose name escapes me from Canada.
Yes. Let me scroll
said
back
about being closed and catty and cliquey.
Yeah.
Yes, I have seen that, and I have seen it in churches, and I have seen it in all churches and centres. Not all churches, all brands of churches and centres I've been to. So Independence, SNU, Christian, Spiritualist. So I have seen these behaviours being exhibited in those places.
Absolutely.
So yes, and I know Nick's circles are also a really good therapy as well, Shelley. I've heard about it. So yeah, if you get out of these things what you put in is what I'm trying to say, in a roundabout, long-winded, Tony type of way.
Before we continue, if you're all right holding court for a second, I'm feeling a little bit moist and I just need to go and... Oh, God.
Bloopers!
Blooper reel! I'm feeling a little bit moist and just have to go and dry off. It's to do with my trying to drown myself with Pepsi. Bear with me. I'll be back in just a moment.
Off you go, dear. But no, that is what I'm trying to say. And oh, you can just see Michael's arm there. Yeah, look, waving. These sessions are your sessions, and we will sit here every Friday for as long as you want us to talk. And it's not for us to do all of the talking. I know we're the only ones on screen, but you guys in the comments, it's brilliant. It really is. Yeah. On my feed, there's Michael put a comment about Saturday afternoon in the pouring rain handing out condoms. Just to give a bit of context to that comment for anybody on that feed, we were at we need to zoom circle, Tony. We do indeed, Karen. We were at Barnsley Pride, and Mesmac is a local charity that do sexual health testing and things. And they gave us a whole bag of condoms and lube and things. So we just went and handed them out at Barnsley Pride. And there were people actually coming up and asking for them, which is really good. Kudos for them for being safe. Safety first at all points. And yes, I do think there should be a Spiritline circle, Karen. I think that would be really good. Eddie Calvin,
I agree.
Eddie Calvin, too innocent. Methinks she does protest too much.
Yes, definitely. Do you know? I don't understand what happened there, but it was physical.
Shook and then
Yeah, and it kind of like activated the bubbles, and it hit the back of my throat and blasted up through my nose, and it felt like I was drowning there. For everyone who says about Pepsi being bad for you, there's proof.
Oh, Carol, thank you. That is really good. Thank you. That means a lot. And like I said, with the state of my mental health in at the moment, hearing these things, and it's been really important for me to do this today because it's been important, and it's been really useful for me as well today to do this because it's been a therapy session for me as well. And
I think it should be. I really do.
Yeah.
Because that's part of the process of mutual learning and people seeing the reason why you do things. And as Steve says, it's the first time watching show.
Welcome.
I've seen you about on other things, but I didn't think you'd been on here before. But you are absolutely very, very welcome. And this is part of forming a community, isn't it? It's not about owning it; it's about being part of it and being part of that process. And I think it's important for people to see that people like yourself and myself are not perfect, that we are still growing and learning, because I think the worst thing for anything in any way of life, and certainly I would despise myself if I thought that it was ever seen that we are on some particular level that people should attain for. We're really not. We're on the same rung as everyone else. We all are on the same rung. But I think it's important that people see that.
Because I think it is easy for people to think that just because you wear one of these, then you've got all the answers and your life must be wonderful and da da da. And actually, I need to talk to you about somebody wanting to be ordained after the show.
Excellent.
So yes, it's not. We haven't got all the answers, and there are a lot of things I still feel like I have to pray about and really ask Spirit about and do a lot of soul searching about things, because it's do I, don't I, what is the right thing to do in this situation? And hello Tim.
Hello Tim.
Watching us. Yes, Tim.
Yeah. See, this is the thing about being able to come together like this. We are people that would quite likely have never ever met, throughout our lives, because I certainly don't get out much. But being able to come together from all over the place. I mean, we've had California, we've got Scotland, we've got France, we've got Littleport, we've got Rotherham. It's all an absolute melding of unity and togetherness, because we recognize that we're all in the same boat sailing along from wherever we've started.
Absolutely.
Tim in the house. Whilst we might all be on our own part of the journey, the philosophy behind the brotherhood of man suggests that we are all the same source of spirit and therefore God. Yes, we are all. Yes, Tim. I say it again. I've ironed the T-shirt with "Yes, Tim" on it, so you know. I am saving it for one day. Oh, hello. Have I frozen, or is it just temporarily?
You froze temporarily.
Temporarily free.
Yeah.
We are back together now. And Steve actually says, the older you get, the more you realise how much we need to grow and learn spirituality.
One thing that really boils my water is when some people have what word can I use? Brass what's it to say, oh, I've been doing this for 45 million years and yet the spirit can't shock me now. There's nothing I can learn.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I think the minute I stop getting surprised and shocked, I think the only thing that has never changed and that will never, that my ability to be surprised is always there, you know, and I think that's really, really important. And I know that the further along that journey you get, the more you accept that you are going to be frequently surprised by spirit and what they can achieve and do for you and help bring, as Tim says, you know, that equality of the journey. You know, there is always something new. Always something.
There is. And our latest prodigy on my feed has just put one line in, which has just blown my brains out of my head. Our paths cross for a reason.
Yes, they do.
They do. They do. And Michael, it's not because Daniel's dad shoved needles into your arm. Daniel's dad did our tattoos. So yeah. And the enjoyment of working for spirit. Absolutely. So Daniel, yes, I am a firm believer of the philosophy of everybody comes into your life for a reason. And if you can't find that reason, you're looking at it from the wrong side of the equation. You've been put in their life for a reason.
Yes, that's a very good point, actually. Really, really good point. And it bounces backwards and forwards. I mean, take for example, there are 3 individuals on here today that have known me progressively different periods of time. Number 1 is me mother. Number 2 is Tim Abbott. And number 3, Lisa Snowflake. Don't get me wrong, I'm not excluding everyone else. I just want to use those as anchor points. Tim was serving as a medium at the first church I ever attended, and his evidence blew my mind and set me on a path of connecting with spirit. Lisa came in very early on after I started taking circles and first became president of that church a few years later. My mother has been with me my whole life, and yet she is now sitting in circle with me and doing workshops and developing and growth. You know, but all of those individual people have played a major part in my life for various different reasons. I've just seen that.
Yeah, Michael asked it on mine as well. I do like Nick's horns.
It's an angel wings. But yeah, so I mean, everyone crosses paths, and you know, I got what I needed from that message from Tim, and then he went off and did other things, and he's grown in his own direction, and we haven't crossed paths so much. But now, in this modern time, our paths have crossed again. You know, and it is all about what we can provide for each other, rather than necessarily being one direction or the other. And I think that's really, really important, that we can all be a part of the process each other.
And Carol's
I'll
just picked on your point as well and said, yes, God does work in mysterious ways. You might be in the right place at the right time, even if you think you're not. Absolutely.
absolutely.
And it's something I've become very good at thinking and asking in life now is, what is this? What has this experience taught me? What was the learning? Why did I have to go through this? Because I think every medium you speak to, and please forgive me if I'm wrong, has gone through some right SH1T in their lives. We all have scars. We all have lived experience that has not been pleasant for a lot of times. And I think it's preparing us for this part of our journey so that we can deliver messages in a certain way to a certain group of people. And so when I look back on my life, it's like, oh yeah, that's what that was for. And oh yeah, I needed to understand that to do this. And it's been wonderful, absolutely wonderful. But it's that thing of, you look at somebody and say, what are they in my life for? They're not adding any value to my life. Well, excuse me, just flip it. You're adding value to their life. There's something you've gone through that they need to pick up on. And that's where we get the interactions from, and the passing on of experiences and things, which are very important.
Absolutely.
I'm a bit lost with Karen's. We need to
Right, so Glenda on
to
too. Right, so Glenda is my fellow co-host on a Monday morning.
Of course.
Glenda, buddy, just for reference, it's currently 2 a.m. for Glenda, so the chances of her coming on live, unless she's having a rough night, are very minimal. But of course, we could probably have a bit of a shift in time. She's an Aussie girl. However, once again, and this is the beauty of how Spirit works. We met a month ago, if that, and we kind of clicked straight away. She is in September going to do a week's residential course in Stansted Hall.
Oh.
She's also planning after that going visiting friends in Scotland. On the way up, she's coming to Littleport.
Oh, fab.
So, it's really, really weird how Spirit plan out. We might think we don't know where that journey is taking us, but they've got little waypoints and clues all ready and rocking. And like I said about, for instance, for example, with Tim and Lisa, we all go our own separate directions, but we always end up coming back together. And we will always meet each other again, depending on what we need. And I think that's important. I mean, Lisa and I, we go months not speaking, and then we spend hours and hours and hours talking. Life is full of surprises.
I'm just reading Tim's question.
Oh, let's put it out. You both speak about your journeys and the people that you've met on that journey. When on that journey did you know that you were a medium, or if you when that journey did you know that you had the potential to be a medium?
For me, that was very early, very, very early. That I didn't have the words for it. I was that young, but I knew I saw things and knew things that other people didn't. And then it goes away and it comes back, and it goes away and it comes back, and each time it shifts you a little bit in your perception of things. And it was only really when I went into a spiritualist church for the first time that I realized, that's what it is. It's being a medium. And sorry, there's a little fly flying around in this room. It's really irritating me. But it was lots of little bits and pieces, like they were dropping breadcrumbs along my
Yeah.
path. And
Yeah.
then when I met Jean, it all sort of gelled, and I thought, oh right. And I didn't want to be a medium; I wanted to be a healer.
Yeah.
But what say do we have in these things, really? You know?
Well, yeah, I'm gonna say absolutely. And of course, your medium does give healing.
Yes, everything we do as spiritualists is healing.
For me, I've got to say, I'm gonna throw out a little bit of. I'm going to throw out a little bit of bat it back to Tim here, because once again, breadcrumbs, definitely breadcrumbs. For my journey, my perspective, there were things when I was a child, when I was a kid, that looking back, I realise now that was mediumship. When I found, again, a spiritualist church, I kind of started putting those meaning words to it. For example, you know, I met Lynn and she set me off on my journey. But then there's always going to be that moment where you get that clincher evidence that sets you on that path and makes you think, oh my God, it actually is real. And I've got to say, it was a message from Tim in Littleport one Thursday night. Because I was experiencing things anew, and I had this experience in my bedroom, and I was laying on my side, and I woke up steady. I was laying on. I was like, oh God, here we go. It's broken now. The moment's gone. But no, I was laying in my bed, and I was having this really, really weird feeling of not being able to move, even though I was awake. And I felt someone stood behind me. I felt the blankets lift up and come over me, and this hand pushed the blanket into me. And it was at that point I was able to turn my head. And although I felt the hand on my shoulder still, there was no hand there. And I managed to move myself over and look, and the door was closed. There was no one in the room. I hadn't heard it open or close, but I was aware that there was someone in there pushing the blanket and lifted the blankets physically over and basically tucked me in. And I was like, okay, this is really, really weird. I'll go to the church on Thursday and see if anything comes up. And I wasn't holding out much hope, I'll be honest with you, because I was still very doubting. Everyone who's sitting in circle with the doubting mind, just listen up to this. I sat there in the church, and Tim stood up on the platform, and he says, I've got a message for, and I can see all of the conversation going on about my comment about being in bed and having an experience. You're all very, very naughty, and I don't know what you mean. But I stood up there, and Tim was serving, and he said, I've got to come to you, Nick. It's not a very big message, but I just have to come to you and say, at night, when you can feel someone putting their hand on your shoulder in bed, yes, it is your grandmother.
Wow.
And that was a defining point in my understanding of, yes, this is mediumship. And yes, I have the potential for this, because I'm getting this feeling, I'm getting this knowledge, I'm getting this experience, and it's being verified by others.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And so for me, that was the moment that mediumship was a possibility for me, because it confirmed I wasn't a nut job, that I wasn't making it up or imagining it. And that was that is a story that I tell frequently, I will admit. But that was the moment for me. A very, very brief, quick message from yourself is what changed my path, because I was still very unsure. And I think there's always going to be an element of that, but it's when you get that moment, that defining bang on the head moment, that really, really changes your view of what it is that's happening. So all I can say, Tim, is thank you, because you might not have thought it was a very big message, but actually it was a big one for me. It really, really was.
I often find actually the shortest, sharpest messages are the most impactful. I've told you the story about the thumbs up message I gave somebody, and it was from my brother, and it was just, you don't need to thank me. Thank you, Tim. That's something I always say at the end of a service. If people come up and like, you were amazing tonight, it's like, no, I wasn't. I just regurgitated the words that were given to me by your loved ones in spirit. It was them that was amazing, not me. I've done very little. Yes, all right. People always say yes, but you put things across in such a way that the warm and loving, and you can see it's done with no ego. Yeah, all right, I get that bit. There is that little human element that comes from the medium, but all in all, it's the spirit world that do all of the work. And I just wanted to pick up on Steve's thing. 73, 73. He said he's 71. Sorry, 71.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. 71. There it is. I can confirm. If it will let me click it.
I just saw it go up and I was like, wow.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is. And I do feel a couple of things that have come up today will be making appearances in Spiritline, the podcast.
Yes.
Because I do feel there's a lot more fleshing out. It's been a hour and a half.
Yes.
Hour and a half. Where did that happen?
I know. And it's great that people can have the opportunity to literally throw out their experiences.
Yeah.
And are actually doing so with confidence and courage. And, you know, I always go back to some of the things that Lynn taught me. Courage is the password, is the first thing she ever taught me. You know, courage takes a lot. And I've always taken that message. There are some messages that we get from people that learnings. I apologize. There are some learnings. I'm getting in trouble now for misspeaking. We don't take everything from everyone, but we must share that which we do of a positive nature. What we have to ask ourselves on that evening in Littleport, when I gave you that message from your grandmother from the spirit world, did your grandmother see your future, or at least the potential?
I feel they would have seen the potential.
Yeah.
I think they can see things in us that we don't see in ourselves. Oh, just a quickie, Neil Payne on my feed says, I can relate to that, Nick, too. It's happened to me within my journey in spiritualism.
Wow, yes.
But yes, I think the spirit world can see those little nuggets, because the message that I got was, we've led you to this point in life. Now it's your choice. You either go with us on this journey, or we leave, and that's it. Bye, Carol. Thank you for all your input. It's been wonderful. But yeah,
keep being doggy, darling.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're doing pizzas tonight. And John Richardson's also said on mine, hi guys, great seeing you live.
Bless you.
But yes, just to wrap it all up in a little ball, it's been, they see those little nuggets and they feed into that. They feed into that and say, you have this choice and you have this choice. Yeah. But we all have freedom of choice, which somebody said very, 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 very early on. I'm not
very long time ago.
I'm really sorry, but yeah, it was way back at the beginning. We all have free will. So what we get presented with from Spirit is, you are on this path and you have now a choice to go this way or this way. Choice is yours. And my choice was, okay, throw myself at it, do what you want to do. And by golly, did they. By golly, did they.
Absolutely. But, and I'm with you on that, Tony. You know, it's there is a difference between having the ability to give you waypoints that you can work through, or being dictatorial on what you're going to do. I do believe that it's a meld of the two. Like you said, there are these waypoints, there are these options, which is why I use the phrase waypoints a lot when I'm talking about spirit guidance. They can give you an option that you can flow with, but doesn't mean to say you're going to take it. And I think that's really, really important.
Can I just chip in, because this person doesn't comment very often and put a comment in which is really brilliant. Lee Pywell, who's quite local to me, says, I think it's because the spirit will see the outside picture without blinkers, so they can see what can happen in both directions, if that makes sense. So they just give you that little nugget to say, these are possibilities, up to you. Yes, Linda, absolutely. I don't know how many for, but I think we need to book brekkie.
Sorry. We will work on time.
Sorry, I was dealing with your comment, Lee, but
no, I agree with Lee. Actually,
I do. I think they can see a little bit further ahead than us. And they can see those little opportunities.
And also, it's not necessarily about being further ahead either. I mean, there are so many things that happen that we aren't aware of what's going on right in the here and now that will lead and come into our path. And so you're absolutely right. It's always very much a combination. And certainly that external view and seeing over the top of what is overlapping our lives and will overlap our lives. It's like if you're running down a mountain, you're looking straight ahead. You can't see that the rock that's been dislodged and is following you down. But spirit can, because they've got that overview, and they'll say, right, okay, step to your left now. If we choose to step left, we've prevented ourselves, and they have helped prevent us from being bulldozed by this rock. But they can see it because it's already happening, and it's a problem. For those who are wanting a Babylon 5 quote from today, I give you the words of Kosh himself. The avalanche has already begun. It's too late for the pebbles to vote. But it's true. They can see the avalanche has already begun. We can't. And they will guide us through that. So absolutely agree. Absolutely agree.
Neil Payne just put, I'm sorry, this could go on all day. It's brilliant. I love it. Freedom of choice is important, but too many expect mediums to give them all of the answers to their problems. Absolutely. And I think this is something we can carry on. Again, I think this may make an appearance in Spiritline, the podcast. And then Lee Pywell says, it's fine. I really hope it's a spoon's brekkie. Sorry, it's an Arbuckle's brekkie. But
we don't have a spoons round our way.
So it's an Arbuckle's, Lee, and laughing faces as well, because I interrupted Lee's comment to pick up Linda's regret. And I will send you our orders, Linda. Absolutely. But I think that's come to 1 hour and 35 minutes.
It certainly has, and I've got some cooking myself to do because it will soon be tea time. I am the resident chef in my house. I can't guarantee it will be as good as an Arbuckle's. However, I'm getting really good at doing a chow mein these days.
Oh, wow. Rice noodles.
We do egg noodles. We do egg noodles, and the reason we do egg noodles is because I've just finally learned how to get them to cook and dry, but with flavour. For anyone interested, it's a combination of soy sauce and sesame oil. That's what gives it the flavour. Don't let them stand still. Keep them frying. And there you go. A little bit of an extra tidbit there of advice. But thank you all so much. Just a little bit of notices. We are back, of course, next week. But if you are in the Littleport area or are able to be in the Littleport area next week, the lovely Tony and others, the lovely Jean, I believe, is going to be with us.
Nicola.
and Nicola are going to be with us. So
and
little
oh, he's not there.
that one that's the one who secretly opens the door and closes it without you seeing him, a bit like Spirit. We're all going to be gathering together for a divine service next Thursday in Littleport. All are, of course, welcome. £3 entry, raffle tickets a choice, and they're only £1 each. Tea and coffee afterwards are free, and there's even bickies now. And
wow.
So we are together next Thursday. For those that can't make it, of course, it will be broadcast online. And for anyone who wants to come and have their photo taken as a big group on the Friday, we're going to go for a photo down in front of the cathedral and then sod off for breakfast afterwards at Arbuckle's on the estate with the cinema on. It's the easiest way to describe it. Leisure. So breakfast photo will be Friday.
Yeah. Lee Pywell says, tip for you, Nick, marinate your meat in the fridge overnight for chow mein. It makes a massive difference.
Yes, it really does. I did that too. Yes, I'm with you. I think the minimum you want to marinate your meat is at least 3 hours, but the longer the better. And make sure as you fry it, it dries so that you can then use the scrapings from the pan to add some flavour. So make sure it dries out before you stick anything else in. Tony, behave.
Sorry.
Oh, my word. So, yes. Yeah, and I'll tell you what else I do. I actually marinate the vegetables in a little bit of soy sauce. And I actually let them sit in a drizzle of sesame oil in the fridge for a couple of hours too, so that you don't have to add any oil to the pan. It's all coming from the product, and that way it dries out a lot quicker. So I think we'll do a cooking show another day. Before Tony loses his will to live. It's been a pleasure, everyone. Thank you so much. I had a good evening.
Absolutely.
We have to go too, so thank you all for joining us. May the peace of the Great Spirit go with you all. We will be back next week, and we'll be together on Thursday night as well, and for breakfast on Friday morning for all those that are interested. We'll share the details and the timelines as we progress through the week, so look out for that. Tony, absolute pleasure as always, my friend.
And you, my dear. Thank you, everybody. It's been really great. And I'll do it this time. And for now, it's good night from me.
And it's good night from him. God bless you all. Be good. May the peace of the Great Spirit go with you all. Night, night, and have a wonderful weekend.